Hello, everyone. Bilal Malas here. And on today's success story interview, I'm super happy to have Yvonne Bradshaw with me. Yvonne, thanks for hopping on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yvonne is a financial security advisor at Freedom 55, which is now called Canada Life. And she's been in that role for a little over a year now, which is, surprisingly, considered a junior advisor. And Yvonne has a really interesting story. She currently is, part of our SLS framework mastermind, and she found a very specific niche. She discovered, who she considers to be her ideal clients in a very special way, and she targets a very specific niche, and we're going to talk about that. But more importantly, Yvonne is generating about 7 to 8 appointments with those ideal prospects that she wants to get appointments with per week. 7 to 8 appointments per week, and about 50% of those are going to second and third meetings, meaning they're 50% of those calls are being qualified. And in her pipeline, which is growing week to week, we have $100,000 in AUM of potential close. And Yvonne, honestly, by the way, as a junior advisor, that's pretty good to hear. I'm happy to have you here. I want to pass the ball to you, please. Yvonne, I talked about you already so much, but please introduce yourself again. Who are you, where are you from, and who it is exactly that you help.
So I'm Yvonne Bradshaw. I'm in lovely Brockville, Ontario, so along the St. Lawrence River. So Canada, in case anyone doesn't know where Brockville is. And I'm passionate about helping other women and racialized Canadians, as well as the LGBTQ community, to be brave, to be vulnerable, and honest in order to create financial plans that work for their well-being. So before joining the SLS framework mastermind, I actually hated prospecting. It was such a nightmare. The whole process, all the training that I was put through, didn't really connect with me. And so I found prospecting really difficult to do because I didn't feel like I was getting to come across to who I wanted to work with. And unlike most newer advisors, I was very laser targeted to who I wanted to help. And so finding the SLS framework mastermind really gave me that space to breathe and to target very tightly who I wanted to speak with. So that's been fantastic.
I appreciate you for sharing that with me. And honestly, you beat me to my first question was, before it's fine. Now, before joining the SLS Framework Mastermind, so you're saying, you joined Freedom 55, which right now is rebranding Canada Life. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big name in Canada in terms of financial institutions, wealth advisory firms. And you're saying the internal training program they had for you for prospecting, for becoming a successful advisor was frustrating, and just you weren't getting the tools you were hoping for as a junior advisor. And me right now, what I do want to talk about is, after joining the SLS Framework Mastermind, how much more confident do you feel about not only the work you're doing as a financial advisor, like the meaning you kind of rediscovered for yourself, that you're able to help the people you want to work with, but also how much more clarity do you have about, who you would consider an ideal client?
Absolutely. So a big part of the way I operate is I generally become what I find I want most in the world. And in terms of dealing with financial institutions, financial products, the whole industry is actually designed for men. It's not designed for women to be comfortable. It's not designed for the LGBTQ community. So what I wanted most was an advisor that could make me feel welcome, help me understand how products worked, help me understand creating a plan, and give me the space to make that plan my own, as opposed to trying to tell me what to do. So really being an advisor. So all of that meant I had to figure out who I specifically wanted to work with, and naturally, I realized I wanted to work with me. However, slight twist, I also wanted to very specifically help the people that have helped me the most in my life, which has been alternative medicine practitioners and providers. So your Reiki specialists, your osteopathic doctors, all of those different modalities that don't often get paid attention to. Those were the women, those were the professionals, even homemakers that I wanted to go after so that they could feel comfortable dealing in the financial world.
Mhm. Excellent. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with me. And yes, you have such a unique approach to your practice and the way you position yourself in terms of who you want to help. And I guess you attract, in the end, you ended up attracting who you portrayed yourself as on your LinkedIn profile and in your messaging. And can we talk about the results you started having right after you were able to, craft your nerve striking messages that you use now in your prospecting efforts and in your LinkedIn profile, which is geared towards that, again, the ideal prospect, the ideal clients that you want to work with. How has that shifted your prospecting efforts?
I took a lot of time and attention when it came to the module on the LinkedIn profile because I knew right from the start that my LinkedIn profile didn't say anything about who I actually am. And it wasn't any different from any other advisor's profile. And so I didn't feel like I stood out. So I really paid very careful attention to all the wonderful tips that you guys had pulled together in such a great way for us. And I took my time and went over every section. And then I went back and went over it again to make sure that I was coming across. I wanted to make people feel welcome and like they were talking to me the entire time they were looking at my profile. And in terms of, I wanted them to get a sense of who I am from a flat screen. So to do that, you really have to pour your heart and soul into it. So that instantly meant that as I created my nerve striking messages, I really honed in on those people. So immediately I started to get responses as soon as I launched the mastermind. And I was a little bit surprised at that, actually. And then as I started getting more and more feedback, it was really easy to constantly update that messaging until it was just right. And I got to say, I'm really proud of it right now. There's nothing that I say in my messaging that I can't stand 125% behind.
Mhm.
And people feel the difference. So I'm not coming across as everybody else. And
Mhm.
as a newer advisor, that's critical.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Yvonne. And what's really interesting is, you even shared that with our community as well on the Q&A calls that we have weekly on our weekly coaching calls. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And Yvonne, the next thing I want to talk about is like, when was it? When was a really critical point throughout your journey in the SLS Framework Mastermind? When was a moment where you were like, yeah, this is real. This is what I needed. Like a little or a small win, a little or a big win throughout your journey. Like what is that turning point where you're like, yep, this is it, I'm going to put all my efforts into it? And from the get-go, I know you put effort, but when you saw that it's real, it's happening, like can you tell us a bit, like share with us a story, a success story here?
Um, Honestly, it was actually the process of identifying the niche that, so I had picked a niche initially and I thought I started working it through and I realized I wasn't connected to that niche and it came out, everything sort of came out sort of static. And we got on a call and I listened to some feedback from some other people participating in the program. And that's when the light bulb went off and said, you know what? It's okay. I got to go back. So I went back again and I went and I touched my niche and I was like, this is where I need to be. And so that was sort of the moment that it really came together for me. And I've got to tell you, the emphasis for new advisors, especially, is to not pick a niche when you're working in the industry. They want you to touch everybody and just keep throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But unfortunately, that makes us completely ineffective. So as soon as you guys emphasize, pick a niche and really understand that niche, that's when I knew what I had was what I consider a gold mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so crucial. It's really sales basics, and unfortunately, yeah, advisors are good advisors, but the sales aspect sometimes is usually is lacking. So thank you for sharing that with us, Yvonne. You've done some amazing work. And let's end, I want to end on one question here is, what would you tell to other junior advisors that recently joined, recently entered the industry? Um, what would you tell them, if they're on the edge of joining the SLS Framework Mastermind?
When I was the very day that I sat down and I started considering the SLS framework, I immediately went to the most senior and most successful advisor I could get a hold of. And I asked the question, is this the right choice for me? And I'll give any new advisor the exact same advice. Regardless of who you are, at some point, everybody has to invest in their business. Everybody has to make that investment. So it becomes important to decide, are you going to make it right from the start, which can change the whole trajectory of your career? And that's what made me make this choice, is because I could sense that this was going to be the game changer for me. I don't intend to be in this industry for the next 50 years. The reality is, I really only want to work in this industry for the next 20 years. And then I want to move on to something else because that's the nature of me. But for the next 20 years, I have a solid foundation under me, and my confidence is through the roof now. I'm connecting and I'm having conversations and I'm creating these wonderful micro relationships that can only help.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you guys so much for that. I can't appreciate it any more than I do now.
Yeah, my pleasure. And that's why, I'm really happy to have you on this interview because your story is so inspiring, as a junior advisor, and more importantly, towards the people that you are targeting and that you want to help. It's such a unique approach. We don't see advisors every day, approaching the market that way because, you can provide, the value to the people that you truly want to help. And in the end, that's what it's all about. As an advisor, you can only do your best job with the people you truly want to help and work with. So I'm really happy to have you on the to have had you on the interview today, Yvonne. So thank you for hopping on.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.